Hey there, Seahawks, it's Miss Adams, and in this video, we're going to look at factoring by grouping. All right, factoring polynomials with four terms. So you need to rearrange them. You may need to rearrange them to make things a little bit easier. Typically, they'll already be set up where you want them, but sometimes you won't be able to pull out a greatest common factor the way that they're arranged, so you might want to just flip-flop the orders around a little bit. All right, so first, you're going to group the first two terms together and the last two terms together. All right, so here's my original problem. I'm going to group the first two terms, the x to the third plus the 7x squared. And then I'm going to group the last two terms, the 2x plus 14. And make sure you include that positive in front of the 2x. And then you're going to factor out the greatest common factor from each binomial. So now you have two binomials. So in the first one, this x cubed plus 7x squared, what do they have in common? Well, they have an x, and then the smallest exponent is 2. So I can pull out an x squared, and that would leave me with x plus 7. In the second one, I have 2x plus 14. Well, 2 goes into 2x, and 2 also goes into 14. So I could pull out a 2, and that would leave me with x plus 7. Then you should have a common piece. So the x plus 7 is common in both of them. So you're going to factor out that common binomial, so x plus 7, and that leaves you with x squared plus 2. Whoops. Forgot my squared. X squared plus 2. So if they ask for the solutions, then you would set each thing equal to 0. And this was x squared again. So then you would solve for x. So on the first one, you would subtract 7, so x is negative 7. On the next one, you would subtract the 2, and you'd have x squared equals 2. And then to undo the square, you would take the square root of both sides. And we cannot take the square root of a negative. That gives us imaginary numbers. So this one, there'd be no solution over here. So we have only one solution, which would be x equals negative 7. All right, this one, x to the third plus 4x squared plus 8x plus 32. I'm going to group the first two terms together and the second two terms together. In the first group, I can pull out an x squared. That would leave me with an x plus 4. In the next group, I can pull out an 8. 8 goes into 8x. 8 also goes into 32. That leaves me with x plus 4 because 8 goes into 8x once, and that just leaves me with the x, and 8 goes into 32 4 times. So my common piece is x plus 4, and my leftover piece is x squared plus 8. So my two factors are x squared plus 8 and x plus 4. All right, again, we're factoring. We're trying to get the factors that can be multiplied together to make this polynomial. So I have four terms. I'm going to group and factor. So I'm going to group the first two terms together and the last two terms together. In the first group, I'm going to pull out a w squared. That leaves me with a w plus 5. In the next group, I can pull out a negative 8. That leaves me with a w. And then negative 40 divided by negative 8 would give me positive 5. Okay, so if you get it and you don't have a matching set in the parentheses, then you know you did something wrong, okay? So you always want to have that matching pair. All right, that leaves me with w squared minus 8 on the outsides of the parentheses. You combine those together. And then the matching set, which is w plus 5. So those are my two factors. All right, I have p to the fifth minus 6p to the third minus 2p to the second plus 12. I'm going to group and factor. I'm going to group the first two. In the first set, I can pull out a p to the third. That's going to leave me with p to the fifth divided by p to the third. Remember, when you're dividing, you subtract the exponents. So that would leave me with a p to the second power minus 6. And then in the next group, I can pull out a negative 2. Now, you want to pull out a negative 2 because you want that matching piece in the middle to be p squared minus 6. And if I take out a negative, when I divide the 12 by a negative, I'll get a negative. So that will leave me with p squared minus 6. So my factors are p cubed minus 2 and p squared minus 6. All right, this one, I'm going to group and factor. So I'm going to group the first two terms together and the last two terms together. In the first group, I can pull out a 3x squared. 3 goes into 3, 3 also goes into 21, and they both have at least an x to the second power. So when I pull that out, I'm left with an x minus 21 divided by 3 is going to give me 7, and x squared divided by x squared is gone. In the next group, I can pull out a 4, and that's going to leave me with x minus 7. So my factors are 3x squared plus 4 and x minus 7. All right, 5. I have 16a to the third plus 8a squared minus 6a minus 3. I'm going to group and factor. In the first group, I can pull out an 8, goes into both 16 and 8, and an a squared, so 8a squared. 8 goes into 16 twice, and I still have an a, so 2a, and then 8a squared divided by 8a squared would give me 1. In the next group, I'm going to pull out a negative 3. So when I pull out a negative 3, negative 6a divided by negative 3 is going to give me positive 2a, and negative 3 divided by negative 3 is going to give me a positive 1. So my factors are 8a squared minus 3 and 2a plus 1. All right, in this one, we have 2xy plus 5x minus x squared minus 10y. So you might want to rearrange it so that my y terms are together, and then I'll be able to pull out a y, and then my pieces that just have an x are together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rearrange it into standard form. So x is first, then y's, and then biggest exponent to smallest exponent within each category. So negative x squared plus 5x plus 2xy minus 10y. Then I can group and factor. In the first group, I can pull out an x. That's all they have in common. So if I pull out an x, that's going to leave me with, actually I should be pulling out a negative x. A negative x, that's going to leave me with a positive x minus 5. In the next group, I can pull out a 2y. So that's going to leave me with x minus 5. And so my factors are a negative x plus 2y. And if you want to rearrange it and put 2y minus x, you can. And then x minus 5. So those are my two factors. All right, that's it.